Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, International MBA at IE Business School. My name is Nelly, and I'll be the moderator on behalf of UniMy team. And I'm here with two very special guests. First, I want to introduce Pedro Martínez Díez, who is a manager global recruitment at IE Business School, and who will tell you a bit more about the MBA program itself. I also want to welcome Valentina Orozco, who is an associate managing consultant at MasterCard, and who will share her experience about studying at IE Business School. Before giving the floor to Pedro, I want to tell everyone who is listening, you can ask questions anytime during the webinar using the Q&A box. We will take time to answer at the end of the session. All questions are welcome, so don't hesitate. I think everything is set now, so Pedro, I'm giving the floor to you.
Thank you, Nelly, and thanks to UniMy for the space, and of course, Valentina for being here. Hi, everybody. So today, as Nelly mentioned, I'm going to be taking you guys through the International MBA, which is the full-time MBA program that we have here at IE Business School in beautiful Madrid. As Nelly mentioned, if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the chat, and we can get to them at the end of the session. And apologies in advance for my voice. I'm just getting over a cold, so it sounded a little weird. I apologize. Right, so I think a good way to start the session is to talk a little bit about the school itself before we talk about the program. And I think a really easy way to do that would be to talk about IE's values. And there are those 5 that you see on your screen. So diversity, technology, innovation, entrepreneurship, humanities, and sustainability. Diversity, it's not only the number of nationalities that you have in a classroom, but also the number of different, professional, educational backgrounds that you have within the classroom that ultimately enrich the conversation that you're going to have. And that's something that we definitely pride ourselves in. Technology innovation, one of the things that we've included from the very beginning. We were one of the first universities to have an online MBA, so it's definitely something that we embed in all of the programs. Entrepreneurship, just as you see down there, we were founded almost 50 years ago. We are a family business, so this is something that we try and instill in our students, whether it might be entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship, but just that drive and that kind of like creation of ideas is something that we include in every single program. Humanities as well, because we believe that humanities make the world, and this of course will be more so part of the electives part of the program, but it's something that the effect of art and literature that that has in business practices is something that we definitely touch on. And last but not least, sustainability, just by the way we run our campuses. This is the behind me, if the green screen is working properly, it's our Madrid campus in the city center, and then we have the tower, which is uptown, and Segovia, which is a smaller campus for undergrad degrees. So some of our international recognition, kind of like who backs us and where we stand for some of the just for some of the lists, kind of like that are in the world, and just for you guys to know where we stand there. Now, what's a school without its people? So I definitely wanted to touch on who makes up IE. At this point, we're talking about over 72,000 alumni spread over 100 countries. So a massive number of people to include into your network and to kind of be able to reach out to and ask for advice. 30 offices. These are offices that are set in different parts of the world, physical offices, and they wear several hats. Some of them, they help you with the process, but also their role is to establish partnerships with local companies and also kind of keep the alumni network alive. While you're here on campus, you have over 100, student clubs. So that's another way for you to interact and network with people who might not be necessarily from your class or your program, but through your interests, whether it be accounting, sailing, or wine, and it could be anything, for you to kind of interact with other people. And last but not least, of course, our professors. As you can see, there are over 100 that are full-time, because again, having a PhD and doing research is incredibly important. But for the most part, you'll find adjunct professors, so people that have their own professional lives going on, that work in X, Y, Z, and that just pop in to give you several sessions. Why is this important? We want to give you a view that is contemporary and very up to date of what's going on in the market. So that's why we put a lot of emphasis in this type of teaching. Now, for the program itself, the International MBA, I mentioned that this is our full-time MBA. It is 1 year, 2 different intakes. So you could start in September or in January. If you start in September, you graduate in July. If you start in January, you graduate in December. 2 different tracks. You could do the entire thing in English, or you could do the core period in Spanish and then do the rest in English. That would be the bilingual option. And this is the campus in, Madrid City Center. Fantastic city to come for a year if you're looking for good weather, good food, and really good vibes. We don't have deadlines per se for the process, so we have a rolling admissions process. You can apply whenever. I always say try and apply with at least 6 months of advance. Who are we looking for? Conventional thinkers. Ultimately, I think it's about you guys having kind of like an idea, a plan of where you want to go with your career, and we want to see that drive and that grit. We have a bit more male or men than women in our class, so definitely if there's any ladies in the audience, just like Valentina, would love to see you guys apply and see you in one of our classes. 72 nationalities in any given intake, so fantastic diversity there. On average, students will be 30 years of age with 6 years of work experience, the minimum being 3. And 91% of the class, give or take, depending on the year, will be international students. Spaniards, we will make up more than 5 to 15% of the class. Now, who are these people? So 50-50 in terms of what they've done for their undergrad degrees. So 50% will have done something like business, management, economics. The rest will have done something different. Lots of engineers lately. Where do they come from? So 35% will come from Europe. We're talking about 25 to 30 that come from Latin America, North American. So Canadians and Americans will make about 15% of the class, 15% from Asia, and then 10% from Africa and the Middle East. And what about industries? So a lot of people obviously from financial services and consultant, some from energy, oil, gas, and then kind of like, it trickles down. To give you an idea, the 2 industries that we put up the most students into will be technology and consultant, right? So I think it kind of like responds to the way the market is going. This is something that we'll talk about, but the program is 45% customizable. You have a comprehensive professional fitness program throughout it. There's different labs. This is streamlined core period. And then there's the option for dual degrees, electives, exchanges, the venture lab, and language classes, among other things, but we'll talk about that in a second. This is the actual structure of the program. There's 3 main parts, like I mentioned. So the core, the labs, and the electives. And then there are things that happen before and after, like the launch, the pre-program, and the final project. Throughout the entire thing, professional fitness classes, like I said, language classes, and the opportunity to take the sustainability certificate, which is something pretty hot in the market right now. Now, so the launch, those are kind of like, these 10 days in between the start of the program and the actual core, where you've kind of introduced to the program. Here, the academic team will lay down their cards and kind of like show you a little bit what to expect of the program. So, networking, speakers, info sessions about the different parts of the program and whatnot. And then comes the core. This is kind of like the foundations of business. So during 20 weeks, you will be doing anything from accounting, finance, marketing, operations, supply chain, data analytics, strategy, everything that a manager should know, right? An MBA is a general management program. So not necessarily going into too much detail, but allowing you to understand the language of anyone in any company. Throughout those 20 weeks, behavioral fitness classes and career fitness classes to start, already helping you find that next great job. Then come the labs. This is the halfway point of the program, and it's also the most practical. We're talking about project based learning. So things that you kind of like really do and kind of like get your hands dirty to learn. First, you have the startup lab for the creators. This is very self-explanatory. The business impact lab for the transformers. This is kind of like regular consultant. The tech lab for the disruptors. This would be technology consultant. Fourth is the social impact lab for the heroes. Here you consult for NGOs and nonprofits. And last but not least, you have the MBA practice for the interns. Again, very self-explanatory. This is an internship. Let's start with the startup lab, which is the most popular with us. I mentioned that we're very entrepreneurial. This gives you the opportunity to, within 5 weeks, kind of like take an idea from zero or just from that idea to an MVP. You have regular check-ins with the team. You have classes, and you pitch every single week for 5 weeks with your team. And the good thing about this you could even take this idea into the venture lab, which is an extracurricular activity that happens during the electives, so during the next term. but it's kind of like an incubator accelerator that would allow you to, take this idea even further, utilize our facilities, our mentors, and even get the opportunity to pitch to investors weekly. The second lab is the Business Impact Lab. This is a regular consultant. A company will give you a project, a problem, something that they have, and you have to come back to them after 5 weeks throughout the entire thing, of course, with the mentorship of our professors and regular check-ins with the company. And in the past, we've collaborated with companies like Johnson & Johnson, Vodafone. We've also had Siemens lately. So, definitely lots of opportunities in there to connect and, ultimately after 5 weeks, present to the board of those companies. The tech lab is tech consultant, so it's the same kind of like principle, and we've done it with IBM and Microsoft lately. So again, really good connections for those of you who might come from maybe an engineering background and want to go into tech consultant or the tech world. The social impact lab is for those of you who have kind of like, a sensitivity towards social issues, sustainable issues. And this allows you to either stay in Madrid or go to Johannesburg and South Africa and consult for small NGOs and nonprofits over there. In the past, we've done things with access to water, sanitary products, microloans, NGOs for women, the list goes on. So, if you have kind of that sensitivity, it would be a good option for you. And then my practice, last but not least, this is merely an internship. You could do this in Madrid, you could do this elsewhere. It'd have to be 7 to 9 weeks. So it does bite slightly into the electives. And yeah, it's a good option for maybe those of you who want to penetrate a new sector or maybe change your geographical locations to explore and make connections early on. Now, the last part of the program would be the electives. You'll end up having we'll present you with a list of 100 and something. There's a bit in processing, and they'll come down to 70 to 80, but you still, have a wide array of options to choose from. There's also 11 concentrations, so you could cluster electives from the same kind of like group and get a concentration in finance, marketing, strategy, accounting, whatever you like. And that would sit kind of like right next to your MBA. So you could have an MBA with a concentration in finance, information system technology, whatever you like. Again, it's a pretty good option. Or you could, instead of doing this in Madrid, you could go on exchange. And you could do this at 60 different partner schools in 29 countries, so go study in the States for 3 to 4 months, go to Singapore, go to Australia, wherever you like. Now, the program ends with the final project. 3 options here. For those of you who got an exchange or are doing a dual degree, I'll get to that in a little bit, but essentially for those of you who've missed the electives, there will be a final case, which is like kind of like, like a big final exam because you've missed part of the program. For those of you who are doing the electives in Madrid, you'll have either the impact project, which would be, kind of like affecting an existing company that you've identified a problem with, and you're kind of like proposing a solution, or a business plan. So from zero, taking an idea to MVP and presenting that to the jury. Now, let's say you want to kind of like extend the program. How do you do this? You have the option of doing a dual degree. With a dual degree, you skip the electives, like I mentioned earlier with the final case, to instead do a whole other IE program. This could be big data, international relations, it could be finance, real estate, the list goes on, right? So if you want maybe to have a solid base in business, but then specialize in something, this would be a good option for you. It's 2 degrees in a year and a half. Now, how does one get to IE? Let's start with financial aid because it's the question that I get the most. Different options here. You have obviously the option of scholarships. We have 20-something different types, depending on your profile, personal, professional. You'll see which 3 to apply to, because you can apply to 3 different ones, and in the hope of being awarded one. And typically, the type of aid that we offer will go up to 40% of the cost of the program. Then you have fellowships. This is also a form of aid. So in exchange for the aid that we offer, you collaborate with IE for the duration of the program. Think about it as a mini internship with the marketing department at IE, or admissions, or maybe the B2B department. It depends. Last but not least, obviously loans. This is something that you'd have to check locally with your office, because you have to be, you know, if you want to do it in Spain, in Spain, you have to be either Spanish, so have a passport, or have you know, family here that can vouch for you. So that's where it gets a little tricky, and it's best to check what agreements we have locally with the local offices to kind of like understand that. We grant about 4 million euros in scholarships yearly. So, you know, there's a pretty big chance that you could be one of the recipients. You know, we're talking about 40% of applicants receiving some sort of financial aid. So definitely, you know, not far-fetched that you could be one of them. If you want more info, there's the website for the financial aid team. Now, admissions. I've broken down the process into 4 steps. So it would be the online application that you fill out, where you fill out your personal details, then the supporting documentation where you upload all the documentation, and then the interview, which would be with an admissions manager from you know, here in Madrid. A couple of weeks after that, next, you should receive an answer from the committee with your final decision. The process in total shouldn't take more than 3 to 4 weeks. Now, what are the admissions requirements for this program? Like I mentioned earlier, at least 3 years of postgraduate, full-time paid work experience, your bachelor's degree, diploma, and transcripts, an entrance exam. This could be the GMAT, the GRE, or our own entrance exam, which is the IGAT. The IGAT is an aptitude test that requires no preparation, so it's very convenient. It tests a bit of your numeracy, a bit of your kind of like, you know, ability to extract information from tables, texts. There's also diagrams. There's an email inbox exercise. So I think you kind of like, you know, emulate situations that you might encounter at the workplace rather than doing heavy math and language like the GMAT. Also, 1 essay where you get to freely talk about whatever you want, anything that we might have missed in the application, and the Kira online assessment. This is a platform that will ask you 3 questions to kind of like see how you think on your feet. 1 of them will be written, you get 5 minutes, and the other 2 are in video format. So you get 30 seconds to prepare and a minute to reply. 2 letters of recommendation from an academic or a professional colleague, or, you know, a contact that you might have. And for those of you who are not native speakers, you either have to ask for a waiver if you've done your entire BA in English, or you've worked in an English-speaking country for at least 2 years, or take an English test. And you have the different tests that we offer and the scores that we ask for down there. So TOEFL, IELTS, Cambridge, and Pearson's Academic. Now, if you want to come to campus or do, you know, be a part of one of our master classes, maybe come to one of our sessions, definitely do go to the events page, because there's always stuff going on. We have an open day in late October. I'm also doing a master class, a career session in early November. You know, hit us up, because there's always things going on. And obviously, if you want to contact me, that's my email. I'll leave it in the chat box later, I think, just for you guys to have it. And that's the website of the program. And this is it for the presentation from my side. I think what's going to be most interesting for you guys will be probably to talk a little bit to our alumna that we have today in the room. So we have Valentina. She graduated recently from the program. She used to work for MasterCard in Colombia, and it's now working for Flywire in Madrid. So very interesting kind of like, you know, story there and development. So thank you, Valentina, for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Pedro, for inviting me, and thank you all for joining. It's very good, I think, to get to know someone that was part of the program and graduated recently, because I think that helped me also make my decision at the point where I made it. So very welcome, very happy to be here, and like let's see what can I help you with.
How did you make that decision? What were you doing exactly? When did you start thinking about doing an MBA? How was that process? What were you looking for?
So I'm Colombian, and I was at that point working for MasterCard back in Colombia, and I got promoted to a managerial position. So I had like already 5-6 years of experience, and I thought and an MBA would give me and would strengthen my skill set, mostly focus on like my soft skills, because the technical skills and the hard skills that I was like building through all my whole career were pretty much set to what I needed. And then, you know, like I thought this is going to give me the opportunity to get to know people from so many different backgrounds, cultures, different bachelors, and it's going to enrich me, absolutely enrich my skill set of soft skills to be able to manage people in a better way, to become just like a better leader. So at that point, I decided it was a good moment to to come study. Also, like, I wanted to give me a break from consulting and the years of my previous experience. So it was the best decision I've made, for sure.
And how was the process itself of applying, deciding which school you were going to? Was that really hard? How do you kind of like go about it?
Yeah, I mean, the process for sure is overwhelming, I think, because there's so many good schools out there. So like, actually, like making that choice of I want to go here takes a while. So I mean, my recommendation also, if you're not 100% sure of that, is like make your due diligence properly before picking the school you want to go to. There's so many good options out there, but the process with IE itself was seamless, was easy. As you were mentioning before in the call, like, the requirements are very straightforward. You need to gather this paperwork or documentation, but then also you need to make the TOEFL or the exam. And so like, it's easy for you to kind of follow through what you need to have ready for the application, and not only for the application, but for like the upcoming steps. So like, you also mentioned it, the financial aid, I was also part of that, and I was able to get a scholarship. So like, also even like, making the essay and like understanding what are the steps with the school specifically, where I mean, for me, was a very good process. I was simultaneously like going through the same process with other schools, because I was applying to like 5 different schools at the same time. And to be honest, I didn't get enough support from others, while like IE provided me the support that I needed to make the process easier.
Amazing. I wanted to hear a little bit about the program itself. So I want to hear about maybe your classmates, your group, the lab that you chose, some of the electives, the modules that you like, maybe the modules that you didn't like as much.
Sure. So the program, the core of the program, that's divided in like the 2 terms. I think it's very interesting, because it gives you like a baseline of, it brings everyone together into like the same baseline. Why? Because as I said before, there's so many different backgrounds. Like, yes, there's a lot of engineering people and like financial backgrounds, but then at the same time, you're studying with people that come from like communications background. Like, they've never seen in their life something related to like finance, right? So those core programs were, I think, very important for everyone, and for me specifically, to understand what was the next step I wanted to take. Like, it helped me reassure and reinforce if I actually like some topics more than others. So it's interesting. And then for me, I mean, of course, the labs is without a doubt like the highlight of this program. Not only because you're able to like customize it so much and do actually whatever you want to do, but because it just like allows you to brainstorm and think, and like think strategically and think in a different way, in a different mindset. So for the labs, I chose the startup lab, and it was great because my team was very diverse. We had people from Asia, we had people from Europe, and so even like the conversations and the brainstorming within my group was so enriching and so interesting, and so actually difficult to handle sometimes, because there were people like thought in a certain way and I thought in a different way. So like, like be able to get to lead those conversations to the right path is amazing. And yeah, the lab period was without a doubt one of the most amazing experiences, as you all like already explained. Is not only you trying to solve a problem, but also like you need to go through the process of like creating a solution and an MVP that's actually kind of real. You need to be able to choose what's your acquisition channel for your startup, or your product, your service, whatever you're gonna do. Then also your buyer persona, like a whole business canvas of what you're gonna do. And the pitching experience is great. One of the things I also took out of this MBA was like the public speaking, because I think as you start creating your brand as a professional. You need to be able to sell not only yourself, but like be able to have like good storytelling, good public speaking skills. And so this literally forces you to do this. Like you're pitching to investors, to VCs, to even other entrepreneurs every single Friday. And it's a lot of work to be able to get there prepared and ready. So it for sure helps you a lot. You grow a lot through the process.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's an incredible process as well. And kind of like maybe start away a bit from the academic about, Madrid, the fun stuff, the clubs, did you join any clubs? Did you, I don't know, any activities, sports, and any trips that kind of come to mind?
I did. And actually, that's also one of the things that I was going to mention and I forgot. Like in the process, in the thought process of like, what school am I going to go to? I not only took into consideration the program itself, but also where am I going to be? Like it's for a whole year, you're not studying, or in some cases, if you go somewhere else, it's for 2, like it's not that you're going to be there for 1 month. And so making sure you feel comfortable in the city or the place you're going to be is, at least for me, it was like a huge part of my decision. And Madrid is a very international city. Madrid is a city that like has a little bit of everything, as you see. It's so international that even like I studied with people that didn't really learn Spanish and they survived perfectly. And it's great because you have like the combination of the program, but you also have so many social events and like even sponsored by IE or not by IE. Like you get to know these people and your intake, or like you'll see, but you're split into sections. Like the people you study with in your section, that's like around a group of like 50 people, it's like your family. So yeah, you literally start doing everything with them. So it's amazing. You travel a lot, and also being able to study with those like international folks. You're invited to their houses, you're invited to their families. There's a lot of people from Europe. I even had the chance to go to Asia because I became really good friends with a Thai friend. So like, that's the other upside of the program, not only like the academics itself, but like being able to create those, like that huge network that it's very difficult to create in other places. Like, well, here the nationalities are so broad that like you're able to make real friends because I mean, you do everything together. So the city is amazing, the country is amazing, the food is amazing, the party is amazing. And I also recommend, like once you start the program, you'll start seeing that there's so many options and so many things that IE offers. But join the clubs, and not only the social ones, but like being able to, if you want to be, like want to start doing consulting, then like map out what's the consulting club and join the consulting club, because it helps you at the end of the day to prepare and be prepared to when you actually graduate. So I joined the like the Latam business clubs. I joined the fintech club because my like my goal was definitely to work in fintech, and I made it possible, like I made it happen. And one of the other things that is not very common, but I'm gonna bring it up here, is that there's sports. And I used to love sports when I did my bachelor back home. And like I joined the IE football team as well. There's no many masters people from in the team, but still it gives you the opportunity to do so many different activities at the same time that it's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think the consulting club point that you made is very important. Like, being able to get together on Saturdays and work on, job applications. And there's something that I wanted to ask you about. What was that job search like in terms of, your relationship with the talent and careers department? Kind of like, what was the just the follow-up, the different activities that you guys did throughout the year? What did that look like for you?
So the moment you start the program, you have an advisor that's literally taking care of every single step that you are kind of taking towards finding a job. But the interesting, and even before you start the program, like you're required to like adjust your CV to a specific format, and IE provides you with so many different tools, such as like a CV format, that like how should you customize your LinkedIn profile to make sure like you are like you are top candidate in the research in the search people are making. And besides those tools, there's like this advisor from talent and careers that's following up on a like maybe like weekly or bi-weekly cadence to get to know, or maybe try to guide you to what you want to. Like, let's like you have first the conversation of like, okay, but what do you want? And maybe you don't really want, or you don't know yet. So like there's so many recommendations of like webinars and calls that you can start joining to kind of like try to understand if you maybe want to do consulting, or you want to do fintech, or you want to do finance, or what do you want to do, because the MBA is still an opportunity for you to just like flip your career 180 degrees. So, but this is a process that, yes, IE provides you with, and they give you so much support, but then on your student side, you need to be very proactive too, right? Because yeah, there's so many options, but it's up to you whether you join or not. It's up to you whether you do the conferences or not. But the resources are out there. And then I also, and this is more like a program that I applied to, but that was offered by the MBA too. There was, for example, a program that was called Women in Tech, that was specifically dedicated to women that wanted to apply to technology roles. And you were granted with a technology mentor, and it was in my case, she was a woman. And this person also guides you to like, okay, what are the companies like now that you want to do tech? There are like 1 million companies in tech. We want to do payments. You want to do like so many different things, and like they help you understand what's the path. And then once you choose the company, what type of role, and then they help you also like connect until, I mean, at the end of the day, you're able to succeed.
Amazing. And in terms of maybe your advice to someone who might be in your shoes, from a year and a half ago, they're working on their application, they might be moving to Madrid soon. Do you have any, tips, tricks, anything that you would have done differently?
I mean, yes, I think the MBA programs are, as I said before, very overwhelming in a very positive way. But because you're having so many different activities, so many different new interactions, so many going back to study is not easy. Also, like for me, it was actually hard to go back to get into that routine. So I would definitely give, like, my advice would be try to map, or try to think, or try to brainstorm prior to getting to starting your program. What do you want to take out of it? Is it that you want to actually, this is like a university with an entrepreneurial kind of focus? Like, are you coming here because you want to build your network, because you want to start your company, or are you coming here because you want to change your career industry, or you want to get a good job in Spain, or you want to get a job in Europe, or you maybe want to go back to your home country? So of course this is not easy, because I mean there's so many people that are trying to discover new things when they get here. But if you are able to understand what are your priorities, it will help you to not get lost. Because what I saw during this year is that there's so many things to do at the same time, that then maybe at some point you're like, my God, but how do I do this? Like what should I go to this, or should I go to this, or should I talk to these people or to these people? So having that in mind, and trying, maybe it can change along the way, but trying to have those expectations set prior to starting, I think it's the key to plan ahead, because otherwise it's very easy. If not, it's you get lost. And but besides that, like more as like as a fan advice, try to also to enjoy this as one of the most and the best experiences you're gonna have, because probably, or for most of you as it was for me, this is the last year probably that it's like a sabbatical, if I think it like that, so being able to travel how much you can, being able to go out the days you're tired, being able to also study and learn, and don't miss classes, like do everything to the max, because then at some point you're going to be back like me, sitting in a laptop 9 to 10 hours a day, and you're going to start missing all those things. So try to optimize and try to take out of this experience as much as you can.
Amazing. I have a question from other, kind of like two questions, and you've touched on this a little bit, but she was asking, how did you know you were professionally ready to do an MBA? And what was your main goal going into a program like this?
I
Pretty
mean, I
deep.
think, yeah, but no, it's pretty much connected to what I said in the beginning. I think building or like creating that skill set or developing that soft skill set is not easy, because to be a leader, it's not easy. So when I started having like teams of 5 or 7 people that I had to lead or had to handle, I realized that maybe I was good at some things, but I was so bad at delegating, for example. And so at some point I was like, I need to do something to learn how to treat people, how to motivate people, because there's so much that's not tangible in the way you are as a leader. No, it's not only about like, hey, do this Excel sheet and like bring it back. It's like, how do you keep you engaged? How do you keep you motivated? How do you keep you happy about the job you're doing for me, right? So that's, I think, part of the decision. I think maybe there's not a right or wrong moment to do it, but I would definitely recommend that, like, if you are kind of like clear on what you want after, it's the right moment. If you're just coming here because you're tired of your job or you want to take a break, you're for sure gonna have fun, but then maybe trying to find what's gonna be the next step is gonna be a little bit difficult or more difficult. And in terms of like, like more like a professional perspective, I knew because of my job in MasterCard that I wanted to focus in fintech. So I was doing more like a financial and tech, more like a broad scope at my work. And then I was like, I want to do fintech. So I kind of like brought together those 2 points. Like this is a right moment to do something that's gonna also help me. This was not like changing my career totally, but kind of like specializing in something. So since I started the program and connecting to the second question you asked, I did all the things that I mentioned before. Like I joined the fintech club. I went to absolutely like all the webinars possible. I tried to connect to people that was in fintech, and I started creating this network even inside my my MasterCard. I was like, hey, I want to connect to fintech people because this is the people that I want to work for. So yeah, that was it. And so when I first got here, I was able to kind of like guide my path in that specific way.
Awesome. I have a couple more questions in the chat that maybe you can help me with. What do you do for your entrance exams? Because people are asking, the GMAT, the IGAT, which one did you do?
I did the IGAT.
The IGAT. What was your experience with it? How did you find it?
To be honest, I think it's more like a logical, it's not kind of like preparing that much, and that's the reason why I kind of chose to do that one, because the difference is huge. This test is more about understanding what's the logical process and the thought process behind so many like decisions, but it's not measuring only like your cognitive skills, but rather things that such as like how fast you are. But it's not hard. Like I actually thought before doing it that like I was gonna fail because I had zero time to prepare, and then actually during the process of taking the test, I was like, I'm not doing great. I don't know if I'm gonna get accepted. But then at the end of the day, it worked out. Like I think it's not a test that you need to prepare for. Not at all.
Definitely. Perfect. People are also asking about dual degrees. Did you have any classmates that ended up doing dual degrees? Do you know of anyone?
I did. I had in my section we had like 5 or 6 friends that ended up doing the dual degree with analytics and with finance. Yeah.
What were their motivations? And, I mean, why did they do it?
To be honest, I think most of them knew they were going to do the other masters for sure, and then they realized, that the MBA program was way more complete. So, 2 of those cases, I for sure know that they were gonna go for the analytics master first, And then when they found about all the labs things that are very catchy for people, they ended up saying like, okay, if the university gives me the option to do both, then I'll just go for both.
Yeah, they were asking about the price. Yeah, so the dual degree is slightly more expensive, but it gives you the opportunity to do both, which is nice. There's a question here about the pre-program. So you do it online, it's 5 weeks. Did you find it to be too intensive? Were you able to work at the same time? How did you fare with it?
I did find it intensive because I was working at the same time and because I had zero background in some of them. So at some point I was like, I had to literally go back to school. I was like, I don't remember these things. But I think more than, like making sure you get a good grade on those, it's kind of like the introduction of like, welcome back to studying, like having the discipline of like putting some time aside to take those. And then I actually did half of them when I was back home, but I couldn't finish them. So I came all the way to Madrid and I finished half of the other half when I was already here. The intensive, yes, you need to have time for them, yes. But it's not horrible. Like everyone, like everyone makes it through. But if you are able to actually finish that before coming here, I would recommend so, because when you first get to Madrid, you're running with I need to open my bank account, I need a house, I need I need a health, so there's so many things like administrative things I need to take care of that you don't really have time for that. So you're able to get that done before coming here. That would be the best you can do.
Ideal. I would agree. There's also a question about the final project. I mentioned that for those people who go on exchange or do a dual degree, it's a final case, which is essentially, a final business case. They give you, I think, a week to solve it. How was your experience with the final project, the final presentation? How did that kind of like look for you?
It was interesting. I didn't do the final case. I did the final input project. That's slightly different.
Longer,
but it was longer, but then it was also very, what it did is it's pretty much like a consulting kind of like service, and you choose what company you want to work for. It's interesting because again, you're very free on like, you can solve whatever you want. So like IE gives you the tools of like, hey, this is how you should kind of like map out a scope, these are the resources, these are the deliverables, and this is how the phases of like what you should do be implemented in your project, but then you choose whatever you want. So it's also very intensive. I think if you take it seriously, it's very intensive, but also because I decided to work with a company back home in Colombia that was a startup, and I actually wanted this to be implemented and to work out for them. So like I took it very seriously.
Passionate about it.
Yes, and like actually nowadays they still reach out back to us and be like, hey, thank you so much, because we're a startup and like there's no way we could have resources to pay for this. So like it's a very interesting process. And then the final presentation is also good because you not only have like the people that are there to assess like what did you do, but then also you have the people that you worked for. So it's like kind of like giving a final pitch to them of like the overall work, a final deliverable of something that's eventually, going to be really used to help the business get better. But it's very interesting.
During the program, did you hear about the sustainability certificate at all?
I did, but I didn't sign up for it.
You didn't do it. Well, so Simone was asking about it. Essentially, it's made up of 3 parts. There's an online course, there's the social impact lab, and then there's 2 electives that you have to choose. Those kind of like 3 things make up the entire certificate. Louise asking about internships. Did you ever consider one, and what type of internships did you see being offered?
To be honest, I didn't. But the reason why I didn't consider them, it's because I had a job back home. So like my 2 considerations or my 2 options were like I either go back to my old job to MasterCard, or if I don't go back, it's because I find a job here. But I, like I never really considered like an internship because I wanted a full-time job. However, I know a lot of people that actually are currently doing an internship. They decided to do the extension that is kind of, once you graduate from the MBA, you have like a period of like 5 to 6 more months where you take more electives, and then you're also allowed to make an internship. And these people that are like currently doing an internship are very happy because it's kind of like an option to open new doors if you didn't find a job. So usually these internships, the people that I know are mostly doing them in tech companies, and there's a high probability of them like getting eventually sponsored.
And did any of your classmates go on exchange?
Yes.
And why did they do it? What was their reasoning?
I think when you graduate, you don't feel it's the time yet. And I think we all had that like, sad feeling of, I don't want to go back to my normal life again. I don't want to go back to working. I don't want to go back to my home country. Because it's difficult. Like I swear that like going back from like being in classes every single day with people you love, like laughing around, like you're back to school, and then all of a sudden going back to work, it's not easy. So the majority of the people that made this decision was because like they didn't wanna go back yet, and they also they also got the chance to like go to so many different countries, to keep doing this, to keep like learning, to keep meeting new people. So yeah, I know people that went like everywhere. Like there's people all over the place, and they're extremely happy about what they did.
Yeah, I know people that are in Australia now that I was in Singapore with in May. So yeah, people travel everywhere. There's another question about the pre-course. In terms of kind of like time that you devoted to it, how many hours a day do you think you would say that you kind of like devoted to the pre-course?
Oof, I don't really remember, but in general, I think it took me like 2 or 3 weeks while I was working. Like I couldn't tell you how many hours I dedicated every day, but I think it was like in general, like like 3 hours were like, let's say from like 2 to 3 hours a day, because you need to go through all like the tutorials. Like there's so many things that you just like can't remember because you saw when you were very young. But yeah, I would say like dedicate around 2 or 3 weeks. That would be more than enough.
Perfect. And could you talk us or kind of like walk us through a regular day at IE? So, you wake up in the morning and what happens after that?
So you wake up in the morning and you usually start classes at 9 in the, like the first core part of the program, and you start classes like around 9. Usually, let's say you probably have 2 or 3 different classes a day. So let's say you finish around 2 or 3. In the beginning, it's pretty much like, hey, let's go hang out, let's like grab a beer. There's so many places around IE that you just like go to get to know the people. And then once you start working there, IE has a very particular thing, is like usually all the deliverables, all the projects are in groups. There are very few individual things, and this is, I think, related to the fact that like they want us to create a network from the very beginning. So you have to, at the end of the day, start scheduling meetings with your team for different things. So pretty much the afternoon at the end of the day ends up like you go have lunch, and then you'll come back to school for like a meeting or 2, but around 4, 5 your days is over. And then for the labs, it's a little bit different because then your schedule is absolutely free. You have some classes, but then you're the one who needs to be very disciplined and be like, hey, we need to meet this time, we need to do this and this and this, because otherwise, without like a very disciplined schedule, it's very difficult to achieve what you want to achieve. But yeah, and also it's very interesting because like usually during the week there's so many things happening. So if it's not a dinner, it's like it's a party, it's like a concert. So like you're exhausted when weekend comes to you. It's like you don't want to be there.
You just want to sleep. Yeah.
Sleep.
Good you touched on it, because Yu Dongcheng was asking about the daily life in Madrid, and I think it's very bright. And I think Spaniards, we like to spend a lot of time in the street, and whether it's grabbing a beer or like going to a museum, going to a concert. So there's always plenty of things to do.
Yeah.
This other person was asking about the interview process, or the actual interview. How was that for you?
The interview process is, I think it's more you assessing if you actually want the school, and just like someone from the team from IE team trying to see if you're a good fit. It's a very easy conversation where you just like bring up why, like why are you making this decision? Why do you want to make the MBA? Why IE? And I guess like if you put together all the previous things that I said before, like you want a school that has like an entrepreneurial focus, you are definitely not only going to choose a school because of the program itself, but then also because of the city. So you're fascinated by Madrid, and because you think also at the end of the day you're interested in being an entrepreneur. Those like there are very key bullets that will help you go through, but the process is easy. It's more like a conversation to get to know you as a candidate.
Agree. Yeah, I used to work in admissions, so I know a little bit, a thing or two of how it works. Margarita's asking about schedules. I think she might be a little confused about how does it work for the core and then the labs and then the electives, because I guess it might get a little bit confusing. Are you given a schedule? Do you get to choose it? How does that work?
So for the core, yes, you're given a schedule. Like you have scheduled classes that you need to just like go to. Then for the labs, you're also given a schedule. What happens there is like before you have a section. So like what I was telling you, the intake is split up into 4 or 5 groups, and then you have a section that you have all your classes with. Then for the labs period, you're mixed up, and so you start having classes and there's schedule as well. But maybe you have 1 class a day. Like like the amount of classes and the sessions are way different because they want to give you as much as like free time for you to go beat up and like work on your startup idea. So yes, on the labs you also have scheduled sessions, but like 1 class per day, and the rest of the day is up to you. How do you meet up with your team?
Yeah. And then electives is a bit more chaotic, I assume.
Yeah, electives is a bit more like depending on what you want. So like the moment when you are gonna choose what type of class you want, they not only give you like the syllabus and like what's the class gonna be about, but then also when are those classes going to happen. So you're able to actually also able to say like, hey, I want these because there's people even that it's like a 2.5 month period, and there's people that was able to put all the schedules in the last month, so they literally took a month off to travel. So it's up to you. So however you want to handle it, and then it's you deciding what classes and when do you wanna take them.
Amazing. I think that's it for questions. Do you want to have like a final statement, anything you like to say, or?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this was one of like the best decisions I've made. So if anyone is hesitating about like doing it, just like my advice again, like make sure you come here with some sort of like an idea of what you want to take out of the MBA, because it's not only a year of your life, it's not only something that costs, I mean, it's expensive. So like make sure you take out whatever you really want to take out of this. But like this is like an amazing city. It's very international. It's very open for everyone, and you'll for sure have a great time. So don't even like think about it twice.
Thank you, Valentina. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. Obviously, hit us up on LinkedIn. You can send me an email. I think probably Neil will share that with you later on. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for all of your questions, and I hope we were we're going to go over time or we're too boring. But yeah, thank you so much, and we hope to see you in Madrid at some point.